It started with 67th Street, where Arlene made sure that there were trees, and she really worked with people at that time. So in getting Landmark West started and so on, she moved really out from the family, doing the same thing for the community itself. And I thought that was just wonderful.
Like Arlene, she's not a 100%er. She just goes all the way and a little beyond. I got involved because I'm an illustrator, cartoonist, and she wanted some visuals. And I tend to work on commission. Not that this was, it was a pro bono thing, but I love architecture, and I love the West Side. I love the grittiness of it. At the time that we moved, in 1969, I remember there was a German restaurant called Voss, and I went there with my father. And my father said, I used to eat here in, I don't know, the 1920s, 1930s. And that was one of the rich things about the West Side that I wanted very much to preserve.
What I'm about and what Arlene is about and Landmark West is about is really your quality of life. And it doesn't stop at your front door. It's where you walk, where you go, and what you're looking at. Basically, preserving the older architecture is really preserving visual diversity.
I think aesthetics, which has become something of a dirty word, you can't use it, or beauty, is actually a moral issue, because what happens is that when something is beautiful, it gives you something. And I think that anybody who contributes to making something beautiful is giving something worthwhile and necessary to others. Well, I loved working with him on this book. Where is it? My Preservation Journal. Nicholas did the layout, and it's absolutely dandy. And I did the little characters going through it. Maybe I helped in other ways, I don't know. I don't think so. Well, whenever I take a job on, I want to do two things. I want it to be fun, I want it to be engaging and involving, and it's for kids, So just as they have, by nature, a playfulness, I feel that all work, if it's good, is play, period. I mean, so that and this is what Steinberg's wife said about him, Steinberg the cartoonist. Whenever Saul would get a job that became work, he'd drop it. But he played with everything, and I did also. We were very fortunate in that we had sponsors, Arlene, the editor, and so forth, whose name I forget, I apologize. And they just let us do, which is, of course, what a good editor does. And it was a pleasure also to work with my son, Nicholas. Because, well, you always have to find a hook. And my hook was the little pencil. Just as the West Side logo is a great hook for me, as I may have mentioned. You add arms, hands, legs, and you're in business. You've got the body made for you. And it also says Landmark West. So my hook here was the pencil. Yeah, it's a nice little book. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Each neighborhood does have its own spirit, and the spirit comes from the people who live there, and maybe the architecture, or actually its availability because of the fact that it was interesting architecture, but also it didn't cost what it cost on the East Side. It drew certainly at a certain point on West End, the musicians all lived there, and so on. So I think that the architecture and its placement then drew certain kinds of people, and that really had a lot to do with its basic spirit and quality, which is a unique part of the city. It's not like the Village, right? And it's certainly not like the East Side. And it has a very living kind of spirit, you know. It breathes, so it's not uptight. and yet has much that is really cared for. So that combination of caring for a place and not being too uptight and human is a great quality that's special to the Upper West Side, I think.
The Landmark West was absolutely essential in the preservation of so many buildings, but in terms of focusing the people's needs on keeping these buildings. So it's not so much precisely what it did, but generally what it did, just to, again, focus people's attention on the need to preserve what is so rich and can't find the word. It's there somewhere.
Anyway,
can't find it.
We always say that the genius is in the details. And so as each little problem or issue came up, Landmark West was there to fight. And that kept the neighborhood focused on these things. But as with the building, each detail must be preserved for the integrity of the whole to exist. And so the fact that incrementally, as you work on each thing, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but always being there, always jumping on it the minute the issue comes up, because you're so well organized at this point. And then really, I think what's amazing is that you seem to know where to go, who to ask, and to mobilize everybody to really move on that particular issue. And then, you know, through the years, with all the issues, it finally, it's not one thing, it's that all of these constantly working on it makes all the difference in the world. And for example, we were just working on the tennis bubbles. Well, you know, I can think whatever I want to think, but if there isn't Landmark West to say, hey, write something and let's put it here, and to bring everybody else so that the ball, you know, is like a snowball, little snowball, and then it keeps rolling because you keep adding everybody to it until, you know, it becomes overwhelming for those on the other side. Sometimes it doesn't, but here it did, and in other times, but I really think then it's been essential for creating a culture, thinking about its architecture and its community in a certain way. And so you do need a very focused and unrelenting, as a matter of fact, focus, which is what has happened here with Landmark West. Unrelenting, that is essential. You can't just get tired one day, and you never have. And that is what is so amazing.
I'm sure they get tired. We all do. And they say,
yeah, but they haven't. But nobody has noticed any fatigue because you're there. I think it's fantastic.
Well, no, I mean, every now and then Arlene would do something that I think, oh, come on, she's crazy in the head. I remember that campaign to improve 72nd Street. It's not going to happen. What do you mean you're going to have the old bishop's lampposts and you're going to have trees, you can get rid of the awnings and so forth. It seemed like a perfectly quixotic undertaking on the part of Arlene, but by God, she stuck to it, and she really did accomplish so much. And I thought, hey, this is never going to happen, and thank God it has. I mean,
it really made a difference.
Made a difference. I remember, maybe it was the 60s or the 70s, I was in a cab and I was passing Washington Square, those great 18th century buildings, and I just blurted out to the cab driver, God, look at those buildings. And the cab driver turned around and said, yeah, aren't they awful? Hello? I mean, that is, I think it's, bad, I'm sorry, old is bad, new and modern and fresh and clean is good. Oh boy, that we lose a hell of a lot of important fights. When that wonderful building on Broadway between 64th and 65th went down, boy, we lost a good-looking building. And that was part of the old fabric of the neighborhood. And that was a tough one. And I suppose, all these wonderful, I call them vernacular buildings, are just in terrible danger of demolition for the high rises, and it's very hard to fight. When a great building or even a good building goes down, sure, I feel discouraged, and I'm morose, and I think, oh my God, how hopeless all this is until the next building is threatened, and then I forget my past discouragement, and I'm ready to fight it in any way that I possibly can. Because you win some, you don't lose them all. And the wins make the losses bearable, and the wins make the fight worthwhile. I don't know what to say about this. Can I say I like it? I really like it. I had great fun doing this. I love getting these assignments. I mean, just go do good stuff. This was my take on the Atlas sculpture by Manship. And I always wondered, why is the globe hollow? That's because the architects told Manship, hey, we have to see the building behind it. Because I have Mickey Mouse instead of Atlas. What do I have here? Oh, yeah. Here we have a reprieve coming too late for the guy whose head has already been chopped off. This so often happens, that buildings
They disappear sometimes in the middle of the night, right?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Who's the real estate developer
Right.
who...
Macklow. Wasn't it Macklow?
Macklow, good for
Yes.
you. And also Trump, when he destroyed
Bonwit
Bonwit Teller,
Teller.
he had told the city that, or a museum or a city, that, we're going to keep that bas-relief that was part of the facade. And by mistake, it was torn down.
And that one, I think, was in, the specific issue there was the Dakota Stable on 77th Street.
See, I don't remember.
But I think we just gave a suggestion to Bob on
Yeah.
something that was very current.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, that was an easy one to do, I mean,
You
whenever...
surely didn't think of it, though.
No, I never given a prop. But what I like was the fact that I could do the whole layout, because I love being involved with design. And I also like the fact that I could hand letter the 25 years of the Good Fight. This is something I learned from Milton Glazer's group. Milton did the Landmark West logo. And what he would often do in his studio, he and others who worked with him, was take topography and trace it so that it had a little bit of the technical look, but still had a hand-drawn quality. I guess that's it. I've done others.
No, there are many others.
Yeah.
There will always be new issues and new problems, and so yes, having Landmark West for the future is absolutely essential. Or if you don't work on the future, the past will be lost.